All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm super thrilled today for my monthly webinar. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it's a week off because we normally have it on the second Thursday, and I was actually in Nashville last week, so we could not do it on that day. So Gunila was kind enough to be able to shift her week. And actually, my next webinar will also be a week early because everybody's going to be at the VHMA conference. So we're a little off schedule. We'll get back in October. So if you've never been with me today, my name is Melissa Tompkins Lewis. I am the owner of South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions. I'm a full-time veterinary practice management consultant and recruiter, and I'm thrilled to be able to host these monthly webinars and bring different talents and different perspectives to practice management, all the things that you would want to be part of. And for those of you who are here live, I will be tracking your names, and I will give you CE attendance. You get 1 hour of certified veterinary practice management credentialing, or sorry, CE certificate from the VHMA. They've given me that. If I can't find your name on my list, I may message you. So pay attention to your chat if your name is not your name that you're under. So just kind of FYI. If you have to leave early, that's okay, because we will be recording this. It is being recorded and being uploaded to my YouTube channel. It will be on there in the next few days. The at South Coast Veterinary Manage 263, and you can watch any additional webinars that you like to watch on there. If you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, and Gunilla is going to take a pause every little bit to answer questions if you have any for her. And I love it when people do emojis. If there's something that she's saying that you like, please put an emoji in there, whatever you're feeling or thinking. I love it when people do the rocket thing and then like splashy, happiness. I love that stuff. So please add to this webinar by doing the emojis for Gunilla. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Dee. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome today Dr. Gunilla Peterson. She's coming to us from Denmark. She is a veterinarian, and she's going to be talking to us about some great leadership things. And I want her to go ahead and take it away, Gunilla.
I will. So, just as a heads up, I had so much to say about this. I was doing the presentation and I had actually got 27 slides and I was still going. And I was like, wait, we got an hour. This is not because there's so much to say about leadership. No, so I have managed to get it down, I think, to 16 slides. So, let me see if I can share my screen so you can see that. I'm sure you appreciate that. Wait, that one. And let's present. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
You can see it. Okay. So the title Melissa gave me, we spoke a bit about this, about being a leader in the veterinary profession and in general. And she ended up giving me like, what does it mean to be a veterinary leader? And I took that question and, pondered on it. And I put this picture for a lot of people on here to like what comes into mind when I think leader is like, oh, I have to control all these people. I have to manage them. I have to be in control of this situation. And being a leader is actually not that complicated once you know the steps and once you have the foundation of what a leader really is and how you can become that leader. So that's kind of what my presentation is on, is not so much like practical tools as this is how you speak to a person, but more the foundation of who you want to become as a person, as a vet, as a leader, as a manager, so you can be the best leader possible. And I'm going to take a page from my own book and I'm going to slow down because I get really excited. And this is what it is about. It's about when you are communicating with other people, having an amazing self-awareness of what am I thinking right now? How am I feeling? Are you able to slow it down? Are you able to stay curious with the other person? Because right now, for example, I am leading, right? I'm leading a session, I'm leading a presentation. And how I do it is more important, me being aware of how am I thinking about this? No, I'm not thinking, I just want to get it over with. Or am I thinking, this is amazing. I really want to do this. You people are amazing. No? The foundation of a good leader to me is the inside, is having that inner confidence that no matter what happens, you have your own back. And I want to say that everybody can be a leader, no matter what position you're in now, no matter how well or bad it is going for you, you can learn to be an amazing leader. And I do find in the veterinary profession, especially, we get into leader position kind of by default. Like the practice manager, the clinical directors I've met have kind of fallen into a position because they were either the most senior or they were the ones that turned up or whatever. We're not always chosen because we have crazy leader skills, right? We're not crazy good at management. We just kind of land in this role. And a lot of us are not necessarily good at it in the beginning. Just as a veterinary surgeon, I was terrible at stitching. I was terrible at consoles. I was really nervous. You know, the first time I did a vaccination, I stabbed myself in the finger, right? But we all learn, right? And this is what I want you to understand, that maybe you know this person that is an amazing leader, you know, that just has that charisma, that calmness, and everybody just listens to them. And some people are born like that, but most of us aren't, and you can for sure learn it. And the importance of being a good leader is because, and I'll explain a bit more what I do so you understand, you know, the vision I have is I have been working in a lot of clinics as we call it a locum. I believe you call it a relief vet in the States. And I have seen the difference between having a good leader, a leader that really can carry the people and be there, and when you have teams that are not being led at all in any comprehensible way, and the difference in the work that is done, the outcome, the experience of the people, your experience as a leader when things are not going well is not very good as well. So being a leader is not something you just kind of, okay, this is just a job, this is just what I do, and I'll just try and get through it. You want to try and be the best leader possible, right? And like I say, like being a leader starts within you. And I'm going to explain the model I work with. So I am a vet, I'm also a life coach. And this is something I teach all my clients always. And every time I'm in a conversation with someone who has an issue, I kind of run this in my head to see where the problem lies, right? So when you are a leader, you don't have to control a lot of people. You don't have to change a lot of things. You just have to have a crazy awareness of what is going on inside of yourself. There's no way in hell you can control in a team what other people do, what other people say. You can't control the stuff that happens in a clinic. You can't control if some client goes mad, or if the person that was in charge of the stock hasn't restocked, you know, like there's going to happen so much stuff. And I put in here as well the weather and the past, because these are all things you cannot control. These are circumstances that happen in your life, and all your power lies within the thoughts you're having about yourself and about the situation. And those thoughts will produce a feeling inside you, and that is what's going to drive your actions and the results you have. And I want you to notice already in this session, for example, if you can, like, what are you thinking? Like, start being aware of what are you thinking, for example, of what I'm saying? What are you thinking about when I'm talking? Are you already thinking about, oh, what am I going to have for lunch today? Because for me, it's dinner, because it's 7 p.m. here in Denmark, but I believe you haven't had lunch yet. So just that inner dialogue that our brain has constantly. I don't know if you know this, but our brain actually senses between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And if we just take them all like, oh, this is just how it is, and you don't have any control, it can be very difficult to be a successful leader, never mind being a happy, fulfilled, calm person, no, or a vet even. This is the model I use as well for all my veterinarians that are maybe having stress or burnout in their clinics. And once you have that self-awareness and you realize how much you're actually spinning in your own thoughts and how much you're tripping over yourself and making things harder for you, then that's when things start to open and you can really step into and having that power that a leader, you know, has. So I'm going to give you an example here. So let's say this is like a really generic where one is not a specific example, because I wasn't sure if you all like related to the veterinary practice, but I do have more example that are more from the vet world. But let's just say in general that your team is not performing for whatever reason. So I've been at clinics where, for example, the surgery started super late because they didn't have a flow that worked in the morning, and then they had to cancel, for example, dental procedures. They were running really late. So when I was coming in as a night vet, then I was like discharging dental patients at 9 p.m. You know, so like the team might not be performing, something is not working, right? And a thought you might have that might just pop into your head, depending on your past, your self-confidence, your whatever people have said to you, what your mom said when you were 5, when you showed her drawing, and she said you're not really good at drawing. Whatever the thoughts that are coming into your head will determine like how you feel. And I, for example, had a lot of these thoughts, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good leader, I'm not a good vet. I had a lot of thoughts that eventually then brought me to burnout. And they will typically produce like a feelings of inadequacy. And shame, no shame, like I should be a better leader. Why am I not a better? Why can I not make people listen to me? And you might look at other people, compare yourself to others that seem to do it so easily, and feel guilt, know that you are not sufficiently like prepared for this thing, no? And when we feel like that, the actions we take is typically getting very defensive. We tend to hide. We don't communicate because I don't feel comfortable in my own body right now, and I feel like a lot of guilt and shame. So why would I even try to communicate or try to avoid communicating with anybody? And if somebody comes to you with feedback or questions, you would shy away from it because you don't want to feel worse than you already are, and you're just spinning in this like I'm not good enough, no? And the result you're producing is that you are literally not the best leader you can be, and nothing improves because you just stay in those thoughts and you spin, no? Let me see. And you're just spinning in these thoughts and you're not questioning them. And the attitude you have towards your position and towards the team will determine the whole ambience, the whole mood of the clinic, and it will determine the flow. It will determine how people are feeling. When you see a huge staff turnover in a clinic as well, that is also because often the leaders are not leading like they should ideally. So how you think about things and how you are feeling is basically the foundation of any clinic. And whatever you are thinking and feeling, your employees will feel it. Like even if you don't say to them, you are useless. If you're thinking it, no matter what you say, they will sense that energy. And you know this, right? You sometimes have people you're talking to and there's just not that chemistry. You kind of like, you don't trust them. You don't really believe what they're saying because they're saying one thing, but you know that they're thinking something else, right? And your employees can feel that. The people you're managing can feel it when you're thinking one thing, when you're feeling one thing, and you're trying to show something else, right? And this is why I say like that the foundation starts within you, because you cannot communicate, receive feedback, give feedback, set boundaries, and get a flow going if you are not like have that foundation within yourself. And if you're sitting right now and you're thinking, well, what do I think on a daily basis? And it would be amazing if you all are thinking, well, I think I'm an amazing leader. I'm just here to I'm here for the ride. That's amazing. But if you sometimes have some doubts or you at 2 a.m., you wake up thinking about something and these very destructive thoughts come into your head and they kind of follow you into the next day, I want you to think about what is that lack of awareness costing you right now in ending up in putting out fires because you're lacking perspective, because you can't be proactive, because you're constantly feeling in this like fight and flight, which is actually not caused by your team not performing, but caused by the thoughts you're having that you're not good enough, and that you just constantly, you're on edge and you feel inadequate, and it doesn't allow you the time and the space to like have a really good perspective, sit down, take constructive feedback, give constructive feedback to others in a way that makes it flow and make the people you are leading, make them trust you and make them really wanting to do what you want to do as well. Basically align the whole clinic, when you're spinning in this. Like there was a client I was coaching who was a partner in a hospital. There were three vets, and she was so stressed and so burned out. And she contacted me because she thought, oh, I think I'm gonna sell my part. I'm just gonna leave the clinic, no? And there was a lot of little things that weren't working. And then she was not. The main issue with her was that she was worried that her two partners wanted to build out the hospitals. Like they wanted to buy CT scanners, they wanted to make it into this big thing. And she was really proud that this was a really nice GP family practice, that they knew all their clients, and that's what she really loved, right? And she was really worried that that's what her partners didn't want. They wanted to do something else, no? And it was one of the main drivers of her wanting to sell. And she was just having these thoughts, right? Like, I'm sure they just want to sell. I'm sure and I actually just challenged her. And I said, like, well, how do you know they're going to sell? And she was literally just assuming it. And they had a meeting and they all agreed that they didn't want to, grow the hospital. They all wanted the same thing. But because they all were in their own heads, assuming and just like not actually questioning these things, but just letting their thoughts take over, they had created this stress and this kind of like unalignment in between them. And all the employees were noticing it and start bickering between them because they were like, oh, the bosses are not getting on. No? And it was just so crazy. It was literally such a little thing when she had the courage to finally sit down and speak to them. she found out that that was just not the case at all. And they were all on the same page. And it was just crazy, like how we have these thoughts and we're not even aware of them. We're just like, oh, that's a fact. That's the circumstance, like the weather or, the past or, the wall is white. My thought is my partners want to grow the hospital and I'm just going to accept it. I'm not going to question it. And that lack of self-awareness, know what it costs. So who am I actually to teach this? And this question is actually even as much for me as it is for you guys, because as a vet and as a woman, I obviously suffer from perfectionism and imposter syndrome. So when Melissa presented me the idea, I was like, this is great. And I said, like, let's teach this. And as the days were approaching and I was doing my slides, I was like, but who am I really to teach this? And I had to literally write it down, right? So I have been a veterinary surgeon for 22 years. I studied in Copenhagen and then I moved to Spain. And I worked in a practice there, and then I ended up having my own practice for 10 years where I absolutely crashed and burned and was the worst leader you could ever imagine. And then I went from there, I went to work as a relief vet in the UK. So I have been, leading the teams when I'm in charge of the emergency team. When I crashed and burned after owning my clinic and I sold it precisely on the day I handed the keys over as Spain closed down for COVID in 2019. That was the day. I was so lucky I got out. It was not, I obviously didn't know about COVID. This sale had been going through for a year. And I handed the keys over and I flew to the UK and I just started working as a relief vet because I did not want to lead people ever again in my whole life. Only then to realize that when you are a vet, you always have to lead, right? Because you're leading the owners through the consultation, through the decisions, you're leading your nurses, you're leading the junior vets. You're always a leader. So I couldn't get away from it. Hence why I ended up turning to coaching. But the coaching actually came into my life because I also was leading my then teenage girls at the same time this was all happening. I felt incredibly inadequate. And I actually turned to coaching to become a better mom. And that's when I then learned the tools to everything related to burnout, stress, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and also actually leading, because I learned to lead my girls in a way that they had a ton of freedom, but they had like really clear boundaries that worked for everybody without me being a dictator, no? So I am living proof that even the worst leader, and I'm not saying you're the worst leaders, please don't think that I think this, but if any of you are thinking that you are not a good leader, I am living proof that it can happen, because I went from zero self-awareness, micromanaging, not delegating anything, because of course I was the only one that could do everything because I didn't trust anybody else to do anything, to now having, and I've written here like, I wrote down 85 to 95% self-awareness, which is a lie. I don't have that much, but most of the time I have a pretty good clarity of what is going on inside my brain. And I can realize when it's terrorizing me, basically, and when it's like, it's not helpful. The thoughts I'm having are not helpful. They are not true. And this is not helpful to the job I'm doing and the way I need to lead my team and the way I need to lead clients and in the practice, and also the way when I lead my coaching clients, no? So I am willing proof. And I'm going to prove this with an example. So this is an example from my start as a clinic owner. When I left the practice, I was working at a small animal clinic in Spain. I left with one of the friends, one of the other vets. We decided to start up our own practice because we knew so much better how to have a clinic, right? With absolutely zero experience, no business training, no management training. We opened up a practice. And in Spain, we have, I think it's a bit different from what you do in the States, but we tend to have grooming in the clinic. So we have pet grooming, which then draws in the client, and then we vaccinate them and so on. So I decided that the groomer we should have should be the groomer that had been fired from the prior clinic, because I thought she had not been, like, the reason she was fired was surely not right. Like, I think because I left the clinic I was working at not really happy with how they were managing the clinic, because I didn't know how hard managing is. So I have this groomer who was also half my friend, right? It's a great idea to start up a business at hiring your friends, as you all know. This is like absolutely not a good idea. And I didn't really know much about grooming And all I knew was she was not maybe the person I saw her as when she was just my friend and co-employee. When she became my employee, I saw her in a different way. She would turn up late all the time, like 10 to 15 minutes. So the clients would stand there with their little poodles and schnauzers and whatever needed in the groom, and she would turn up late. She would turn up very inappropriately dressed for her age, and like really, she was like in her late 40s, and she would turn up in like little hot red mini pants and like boobs up to here, and she would stand and smoke outside. She would become friends with the bartenders from the bars that was around us on the main street. She would stand outside smoking, just leaving the dog. Like she was like the worst employee ever. But I was incapable of setting any boundaries with her because I did not want to have an uncomfortable conversation with her. I did not want to feel bad. I felt like, I was a bad leader, and surely I did not want to prove that I had failed by employing her, right? Until the day we had this lovely, lovely client, a man who had two beautiful giant schnauzers, hence this picture, because they went for grooming, and as usual, she was late, and he had to sit there forever in a hot waiting room. I was a bit annoyed, but okay, I was used to it. And then next day he came in and asked to see me because he was really happy with who we were as vets. Me and my business partner, he was really happy with the veterinary bit of the clinic. And he said, "You need to fire your groomer." And I was like, "Okay, why?" Because he said, because when my dogs came out, which are beautiful, standard, like giant schnauzers, they looked like Picasso had drawn them. That was where the haircut. They literally look, and I'm not kidding, this picture here of Pablo Picasso's Afghan hunt, that was literally how the schnauzers looked. And so I was a veterinary, I was a veterinary surgeon in my own, and I was a practice owner, and I had to have a client tell me to please fire this employee because he said she will sink your clinic. No, so after he said that, I spoke to the woman that was helping me with that HR. So I have an external consultant, and we then kind of set it up because I did not have literally the courage to fire this woman. She was older than me, and she was like a fireball, and I was really worried about what would happen. So she came, and we ended up having a 7-hour stand down where we were arguing about why I was firing her. It was awful. I came out so drained. My husband kind of dragged me out and just fed me wine afterwards because I was so like, it was so overwhelming. She ended up taking me to court, and I had to just pay her off because I could not face any more of that. But when we finished the argument, she turned to me and she goes, "Oh my God, I should just have turned up on time and do my job." And I was like, yes, that would have been amazing. And I tell you the story because it sounds ridiculous when I tell it now, but when I was in it, I could not see it. I could not see that the problem was me. And I'm going to show you the model that I was running. So my groomer was, in a nutshell, not performing, right? There's a long line there. And I thought, like, if I tell her off or fire her, I'm a bad person and she won't like me. And I also had this underlying thought that I was the one employing her because my business partner was a bit like me, I don't know. And I was like, no, we'll employ her, right? I did not want to admit that it was a failure, that I had failed, because I made it mean a lot about me as a person, as a practice owner, as a vet. Like, I should have known better, right? And I felt so much doubt and guilt that it just spiraled into this situation where I just made the whole thing so much worse by not giving her the feedback that she needed from the beginning, right? I didn't raise my concerns. I ignored any issues and just kept my head in the sand. There was a day where there was this like old lady who's Spanish people can be quite expressive. And she was in the waiting room shouting at this groomer as well because she had done her little like Mexican mini poodle also looking like a Picasso. And that incident I kind of ignored because I thought, oh, the lady is just, because she was quite a demanding client. And I made excuses for the groomer, right? I just was hoping that the problem would go away. And the result that not the groomer, the result I was producing was that I let it go on for so long, it became a real issue. And then she didn't like me anyway, right? What happened in the end was I exploded, the whole thing exploded, and she didn't like me, right? And she thought I was a really bad person. And of course, I never told her. I just like laughingly said, oh, maybe tomorrow you can be here on time, like just trying to be, because I was such a people pleaser and I really wanted her to like me, but I made the whole thing worse because I did not take any responsibility for this, for the situation. And one of the reasons we can be really afraid of giving feedback is if you think about this, no? Like this model I'm showing you, there's a situation. So for example, if you're the practice manager and there's an employee that something you just want to correct, you want them to change something, you want them to come on time, you want them to be faster, whatever it is you want to change, you tell them, no, listen, it would be amazing if, we'd had a complaint and I would like you to do X, Y, Z. That is their circumstance, right? And that's the only thing you can control is what comes out of your mouth. You cannot control the rest of the model, right? Whatever they think, whatever they feel, and whatever action they take, you cannot control it. And that is scary because you don't know what's going to happen in the conversation and you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. So a lot of us will try and control the situation by like passive aggressiveness or simply trying to ignore it or just not give the feedback or be too nice maybe and not be honest because we want to try and control the situation. We want basically to control their model, which is absolutely impossible because you don't know the past of everybody. You don't know what prior experiences they have. No, let's say you are wearing a perfume that their primary teacher was wearing that really triggers them because this woman was really nasty to them. And then you're talking to them up close and they're smelling that. The way they react, they don't even know why they react like that. And that's what I mean. Like you cannot, as a leader, you cannot always have people like you and you cannot control this. And you can be the nicest person on earth and give incredibly constructive feedback, but you cannot control how they take it because their thoughts and their feelings is completely out of your control. And if you're in a relationship or you have children, you might know this to be true in any relationship, not just at work, right? Does anybody have any questions, Melissa?
Not so far. There was Dee said she has a lot of groomer stories that she can share. So yeah, no questions.
We'll have to have a meeting afterwards, just like drinking wine and telling stories. Okay, so I'm telling you this because I want to know how bad it was for me. And this is a proof that anybody can change and you can become an amazing leader. And everyone can learn, and we learn especially from failure. If I hadn't had all those experiences I had in my practice and as a vet right from the beginning, I would never have learned everything I learned and I know today, right? But there is caveat with this, and that is like, so I coach quite a lot of vets that are my age. So I'm 50 in October, and I coach like people in their 40s, and they still carry terror from the first few years out of practice, where they maybe were really afraid of. Do you say bit space, so female dog space, like or hysterectomies? They were afraid back then, and they are still afraid of it. And I speak to people my age that would like, they really don't want to do them. They want someone else to do them. And so you cannot learn from failure if you don't learn to evaluate it correctly. What I mean by this is if you keep beating yourself up about it and you keep having the thought, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, others are quicker than me, I am incapable of doing this, I'm just not good at surgery, I'm just not good at this, whatever it is that goes on in your brain, if you don't realize you're thinking these things and you just focus on all the things you did wrong and you don't actually learn from them, then you're not going to learn from your failure. And we can become stronger, better, more capable leaders all the time, as well as veterinary surgeons, as well as parents, as well as whatever it is your endeavor is, if you're willing to evaluate what you're doing, if you're willing to see things differently and you're willing to change. And it is very scary to change, right? Like if you have like a default way of thinking, a default way of doing things, it can be really scary to change because our brains will always try to keep us safe by doing the same thing we've always done. And that is why a lot of people that are quite insecure, I was thinking of a specific president, but people that are quite like, that don't have this groundedness and this self-awareness, they will not change. They will always go down the same route because it's just what they know, right? It's what we know, we want to stick to it. But it doesn't make us any better at what we do if we cannot evaluate. Another reason we don't want to evaluate, and it can be really difficult to learn from our failures and become better leaders, is a lot of vets especially, and I think women in general, we are very perfectionist. No, there's this like, having to have good grades and kind of proving yourself always and be the good girl and, you know, being as perfect as we can and everything. And especially in the veterinary profession, like in order to get to vet school and get through vet school, like you have to be perfect in your grades, right? You have to be perfect at everything. So when we are put in a position, either as a vet in a console operating or as a leader in something which is new that we actually not that good at yet, we are so afraid of the failure that because we search for that perfectionism, and when we're not perfect, we don't want to really see it. We don't want to look it in the eyes and say, "Hey, I messed up here," you know, and what can I do next time? Because it really hurts. No, it's scary. And the way I teach my clients to evaluate is always have like a three-step process. So when you've had an incident, let's say that you had a communication with a conversation with someone, maybe to fire them or maybe to give them some feedback, or maybe even a meeting that you arranged and you're trying to like get people to do things, and afterwards you sit down and you start just like, well, okay, what went well? What did I do well? So for example, if it was a conversation with someone, you can say, well, I prepped them, you know, and I really checked in with myself before I went into the conversation, and I noticed I was getting a bit worked up, and I took a pause before I talked, you know, and this person, and I did active listening. So you kind of write down first what went well. And the reason we want to do that is because we don't want to become terrified at evaluating ourselves. And our brains have a negativity bias that is like the weight of a truck, right? Our brains will always go for the negative thing if it can. It will always try to show you how bad you've done things. And it comes back to protecting us, no, because it's trying to protect us from doing things wrongly and not be as perfect as possible, because that's what it considers safe. But if you start out saying like, right, I messed up, all the things I did wrong, that's all you're going to see. And you're not even going to remember what went well. And the way to bring yourself into a neutral state where you can actually like, you know, run the model and see what was I thinking, what happened, is to first show your brain, actually, there are a lot of things I do well as a leader, no? That, you know, I care about. Maybe it's just that you care about your people. Maybe it's that that you're really trying, no, that you are stepping up for the team. Because for example, if let's say one of your nurses is a gossiper, is just always stirring shit and always, you know, like dragging the team down, you're letting the team down if you don't take responsibility and speak to this person. And that takes a lot of courage. You know, I know from my dog grooming episode that it takes a lot of courage to do this. So what went well? Well, I had the courage to speak to this person. And let's say the conversation did not go at all like you wanted it to go, but you can like pat yourself on the shoulder because you took the courage and you had the awareness to speak to this person and give it a go, no? So always when we evaluate, we want to write down first. And I say write because when I do this and I try to do it on the fly in my brain will quickly bypass. It will maybe give one example of what went well, and then it will start with a back chat with everything I didn't do well. So I always recommend for this that you write it down, just in a notebook, just like 3 things that went well, no? And then you can say what didn't go so well. Okay, so I had told myself that I was going to start saying positive things to maybe to this person, to the nurse, but she straight away went into everything that didn't work. And then it became a really negative conversation instead of something constructive. That didn't go so well. Okay. And maybe I ended up crying because I got so overwhelmed. There could be things that didn't go so well. Okay, that's fine. Now we know, right? And what would I do differently next time? And that is how you become better at anything step by step. No, as a vet, as a leader, as a parent, even in a relationship, no, if you are having some issues with your partner and you want to have conversations with them, evaluating it afterwards is gold. Okay. But here's the thing. When I became a coach, I learned this, like we had to evaluate ourselves as coaches. And I was thinking, why didn't I learn to do that as a vet as well? That would have been so helpful, but no. But I didn't want to evaluate because I didn't like how it made me feel. I didn't like feeling inadequate. I didn't like feeling that I wasn't perfect. Literally did not want to look at a piece of paper and see the things that I had done wrong. Because and as humans, no, we tend to attach a lot of our self-worth, a lot of our Yeah, I guess it's just our self-worth to our performance, to the things we do, to how good are we at this, how well do we do this. And it is very easy from there to link failure to being a bad person or to being a person that's not good enough. And that is often what happens in this profession, and why people just cannot cope and they leave the profession because they just spiral down into this like, I'm not good enough, I can't do enough, I can never do enough, I will never be good at this, no? And that is so I literally didn't want to do the evaluation even when I had learned it. I said to myself, every Friday I'm going to evaluate, in this case I was training as a coach, I'm going to evaluate it, and I would just skip it. My brain would just find something else business. If my husband was like, should we go for a walk, I'll be like, oh well, I guess I'm not doing my evaluation today, and I would just go out because I literally did not want to face my imperfections, because facing my imperfections and having to accept them meant that I wasn't perfect, which was very bad back then. No, that's how I thought, and that's what I see a lot of vets do as well. And I think in general, as humans, we don't want to see these things because being imperfect is just like, as I'm saying this now, and I'm sure you're all rolling your eyes and thinking, well, I know nobody's perfect. Yes, but when you're in the moment, you forget, right? So I haven't recently. I had a case where, so right now I work as a night vet 1 week a month in the UK, and then I work as a life coach the remaining weeks. And I had a case, and I think it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and there were two old people, and the lady, I don't know if she had a slight senile dementia, but they brought in a Cavalier King, and he was sick, and she kept asking me, I'm not kidding you, like every minute, is it the heart? Is it the heart? Is it the heart? Like, and she had like, I did bloods on this dog, and it was just all over the place. Like the blood sugar, I was like, this looks like it's a cushion with diabetes, with something. And the husband was being very patronizing, talking over her. And I thought, the dog is stable right now. I think I'm going to give it an anti-sickness injection, and it can go to the on vet tomorrow morning because it's like 4 or 5 o'clock now. They open at 10. It will be fine in that time. And I think the on vet hopefully knows a bit more how this couple works, because I cannot see it. And it's just taking me a lot of effort. The dog is stable. So I did that, and they were happy. And then next night, when I come into my shift, the dog is hospitalized. And there was a note from the vet that I had sent it back to during the day, very angry, very patronizing, this is very bad. The dog clearly has diabetes. You should have done X, Y, Z. Now it's going to go into ketoacidosis, blah, blah. And I thought, he might be right. I might have been very tired and overlooked something here, but you know what? Like, I had 20 cases. I was working, and the dog is fine. It's stable. Maybe it wasn't perfect. And also, it's fine. Like, yes, maybe I made a mistake. And I just realized how badly I would have taken that in the past, how I would have beaten myself up, despite nothing happening. The dog didn't die. She was fine. They decided to put her to sleep next day anyway, because she just had so many issues going on with her, and they couldn't face it because they were quite old. But somebody says to you, you have not managed this case right, or you have not managed this practice right, or you not managed this thing right. And we're like, oh my God, no, like that sinking feeling, that knot in your stomach, you just like break into cold sweat. That's how it used to be for me. And now I just realized, I'm like, yeah, it probably wasn't perfect. Next time when they have these blood values, what I will probably do, I'll text for this, and I'll just check in with the client whether it's going to be okay. I took the feedback. I kind of dismissed his tone a bit, and also the fact that he had sent the note over with the client so they could read it. That pissed me off a bit, but I was like, that he was probably busy as well. No, while in the past, that would have sent me spinning for days. And is this me being able to accept, yes, I'm not perfect. You're right. And you saw me not being perfect. And it's okay, and have that. I can also learn from it. Yes, you may be 50, it's a 50-50. I don't know if you're right, I'm right, but I can learn from this, right? And that is what you do when you evaluate. You realize, oh, this was not perfect, which is fine, right? And what can I learn from it? And not use it against yourself. And the idea is always when we evaluate, to be improving, but not coming from, I'm not good enough, hence I need to get better. No, it's like, I'm good enough as I am. Like, I'm leading, I'm doing my best, and I'd like to get even better. It's from that point of view, right? It's never from, I'm not good enough, I should be better, I should. We always say like should is a fusion between shame and could, and it's so true. When you notice you're shoulding yourself, like really notice it, because there's always a little bit of, oh, you should have cleaned the house before you had guests, or you should have done these things, you should have phoned that client. There's always like a little bit of a shame in there. So don't use it against yourself. And we have the next slide. And just before quickly, is there any questions just in case somebody's doing something?
Nope.
Cool. And we are, yes. So one of the reasons we have this fear of not saying the right thing and people judging us, not doing the right thing and then beating ourselves up, and always maybe you have, say if you are vet and you are managing a team and another vet comes in that's better than you and you feel incredibly threatened by this, it comes back to again about your self-worth, no, because like everything is about me. When the ego is high inside of us, it is often because we don't feel very confident. We are comparing ourselves to other people. We want to be best at everything, but it's not a like an egomaniac. The ego is more. It's this inner voice you have. It's your primitive brain trying to keep you safe, trying to always make sure that you are as perfect as possible, that nobody can call you out, that you're always performing, you're always right, always be right as well is very much about the ego. And it comes from this insecurity we have inside that wants to protect you, and it comes back in the day when we lived in caves and we lived in tribes. Like if your tribe didn't like you, or they thought, well, you're not good enough, like, well, they just kicked you out, right? You were then out with the sable irons and no food and no roof over your head. And it sounds silly, but our primitive brain is still working like that. It's really scared of being rejected by the tribe. And the veterinary profession is a big tribe, and it's a very close tribe, and you do not want to be singled out as the one that's not good enough, right? And if I can imagine there was a few practice managers here, and I can imagine you probably know each other a little bit. You do not want to be singled out. Like, did you hear about that one? Like there is that inner fear, and that is the ego talking that's trying to protect you. It protects us from attack, but it also separates us from other people. Because when my ego is high, and I'm not meaning ego as I'm like, oh, I'm the best person in the world, but the ego is there, like everything is about me. Then it separates me from other people because I really look at myself. So, for example, when I used to give presentations in the beginning and I used to do my podcast in the beginning, being on video was so scary, and because all I could think of, because once you're nervous, like everything becomes about yourself, and I would think about how do people see me and how do they think I am and do they like me? And you know what? Like people don't care. Like everybody has their own life and everybody are like the main character in their own movie. But when you have the ego high, you think everybody are looking at you and you think you are the main character in everybody's movie, which is not the case, no. But it separates from us from people because when I'm in that state, I cannot stop and listen to you, and I can't really see you. I can't really hear you because, for example, if I remember as a new vet, and a lot of the new vets I speak to, for example, they tend to they want to write their notes at the end of the day and they forget a lot of things, no? And a lot of them have problems in the consultation because they feel really they have to pay so much attention to the client, and it's because they're feeling that lack of confidence, which is completely normal because when we come out as vets we actually don't know much about being with people and talking to them. So we are spending a lot of time with a model that runs along the lines of what are they thinking? What if I don't know what to do next? What if they think I don't know what I'm doing? Like, what if I stab myself, which I did repeatedly? You're so worried about yourself that you can't actually have a good chemistry with the owners because you're not really paying attention to what they're saying. You're not really paying attention to their body language. You're not paying attention to what's being said because you're so in your own head, not because you're so worried about how they might perceive you. And also when the ego is high, I want to do things my way. I do not delegate and I will micromanage everything to the last little pencil because it's about me and I need to be in control, right? That's how I do it. And I want to control my model and I want to control everybody else's model, which is funny because at the same time, I actually have zero self-awareness. When I'm giving feedback from this position, it can be really hard because if I'm already feeling threatened simply by you being here, because everything is about me and you're going to be judging me, and what if you don't like me? If I feel threatened by you, then it's really difficult to have a normal conversation, right? And my feedback is going to be very much like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and this is what you have to do, right? I cannot, and if you then give me feedback back, I'm going to completely freak out because I'm already in a defensive state, no? So it's really important to check our ego first when we either give feedback or when we receive feedback, because you cannot receive a constructive criticism if your ego is high and you're completely on your own head and you're just running like these 60,000 thoughts at a, per minute, and you're not even aware of them, right? And something I'm sure you've heard this before, but when I first heard it, I thought, oh, that's so clever. Being a smart leader is not being the smartest person in the room. It's like being the smart person that hires everybody who's smarter than you so they can do the jobs they're supposed to do. You do not have to know everything. You don't have to be the clever one. You don't have to be the one that knows what to say. You can literally turn around to anybody and say, so what do you think? All time, because they're supposed to be better than you. But when the ego is high, you want to prove yourself and you want to be right, no? And it's really important to, when you are a leader, not focus on you being right, you being the best, but focus on the outcome. What do we want in this clinic? And the best example I have from this is, so my husband, who's a Brit I'm married to now, I'm the fourth wife. I feel very special. But one of his divorces, he didn't get along with his ex-wife. And when they were having the divorce, they did not speak. It was everything through a lawyer. And Bruce went to the lawyer when they were finalizing the paperwork, and the wife had sent letters with telling stories that Bruce perceived as lies. Now, there's always two versions, but he perceived them as lies. And he was like, well, those are lies, and you have to answer, and this and the other. And the lawyer was like, I get charged by hour, so I can do that if you want. But also, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want to just sign the papers and go and just leave this behind? And that has just stuck in my brain since he told me when we first met 17 years ago, because it's like, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Like, who cares if I'm right? We just need to get this thing done. Like, who cares who said what, when? We just want the thing done. We just want the clinic to get better. We just want people to work together. We want to have 10 surgeries a day instead of 3 because people are not able to work together. No, that's what I want. And I don't care who's right or wrong. We just want things done, no? And the thing when you're in the ego is like the ego will try to find who to blame, which is not constructive at all. Like, when you find someone to blame, it's just not constructive. You need to find out, how do we solve the situation? This was the first example I gave of the model. And notice how we're thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a good leader. I'm blaming myself, right? And I feel inadequate. I feel shameful. I feel guilt. And I'm not becoming the best leader I want to be, right? But say my ego chooses, which is completely random, chooses to blame somebody else. Like, they don't listen. They should be able to do more. They are useless. Why can't they just, then I become frustrated. I become angry because why can't they just figure this out? And now I'm reactive, I'm lashing out, I'm not communicating efficiently, and I'm still not the best leader I can be, and my team still doesn't get better because I'm here trying to find the blame, and I'm trying to find I'm right and you guys need to do this thing, no? Instead of staying open, curious, and trying to find out what's actually happening. So the best way to recognize when your ego is high, when you're in a situation that you are not your best self, when you're not going to be able to do anything productive or constructive here, like all you're going to just you're just going to create noise and you're going to create people that do not agree with you and you're not going to get anything done, is when you notice that you have feelings of defensiveness, when you're feeling really anxious, and that there's a difference about being a little bit nervous going into a conversation, and there's that anxiety that literally has you, like, your heart is up here in your throat and you're like, you have that knot and you're like, I just need to get it over with. Or when you're feeling shame because you weren't good enough, or you're like really doubting yourself, those are clues that the ego is high and is like warning you and protecting you. So this is something I struggle so much with, which was feeling my emotions. And when I coach vets on this, like veterinarians, this is such a battle because they will tell me about some triggering situations they didn't like. And I would be like, okay, so this happened. What do you think? And then we'll get to the part in the model, and I'm like, so what were you feeling? Well, then he said, and they'll continue talking. And so how did that feel in your body? And so I just couldn't help thinking that, to get them to sit and really get to feel what is actually happening in our body. When we're high performers, and if you're managers as well, I bet you're not sitting on your butt all day, you are really high performers as well. Like, it can be really hard to to tune in and feel how am I feeling. But it is something that is so necessary if you're a leader, because if you don't know what you're feeling and what you're thinking, like how can you be like a person that people can trust? And if you don't feel calm, if you don't feel grounded, if you're not able to remove yourself from a situation when you get triggered, like that you cannot become the best leader you want to do. So if you want, I'll be happy to take you through the just a brief. We're not gonna do like 20 minutes, but like maybe just like 2 or 3 minutes of how I do on the go on how I teach my clients to feel their emotions. Melissa, do you think will people be up for that?
Sure, we have about 9 minutes, so whatever your time frame is.
I want to tell you first an example of why this is important. So one of my clients, she's not a vet. She owns one of the firms that deliver machine parts to Disney in Florida, and she has to. Those parts have to be extremely very accurate, so people don't like they're on the roller coaster and the whole thing falls apart. And there was one of her employees that had gotten the dimensions wrong or something, and she kept doing this, and she was not taking the feedback like you need to correct this needs to you need to change this. She just kept doing the same thing. So in the end, she had a proper uncomfortable conversation with her, and the employee said, no, but you told me this. You told me this thing. You didn't say that. You said this. And my client, who's also my friend, noticed she really noticed she got triggered. She noticed the emotions, and she's like, okay. And she just turned away and she just did something else because she thought if I start now, this is going to turn into an argument. And about 10 minutes later, the employee came running to her and she was literally crying, saying, I'm so sorry. Something had happened at home and I'm just not myself. So she gave her that space. Now, if she had not felt that she was being triggered and she was getting like frustrated and angry and had stepped away from the situation, like that would have been a completely different scenario. So now they could have a conversation and she could say, well, if something is happening at home, you need to share it with me, or at least tell me you're not your best so we can get things done. I just wanted to share this story just to like encourage you to do this this exercise. And it's something like I have a podcast episode where I guide people through it as well. But I just want you to sit a second, if it's possible at all, like just sit wherever you are and close your eyes for a second and just breathe in, just breathe slowly, just notice your chest expanding. And breathing out and just landing in your seat and just keep breathing in slowly, expanding your chest, expanding your belly. And notice how your feet are grounding on the floor, how the earth is supporting you, and how your thighs and your backside is supported by the chair you're sitting in, and your arms, wherever they're rested, just notice them. And then notice right now where you might be feeling an emotion in your body. So as an example, when I'm a bit nervous, I get a bit of knot in my stomach, so just underneath the diaphragm, I notice a tension. Or if I'm really frustrated and there's something I'm keeping in and I feel like I need to do something, sometimes I feel like a constriction of my throat. I can feel like a weight on my chest. You can feel that sometimes I feel like the steel bands they have around barrels. I feel like that around my chest. Sometimes it can be tension in the neck. You could try and roll your head a bit and just feel where it is. And just keep breathing deeply. And just notice where the feeling is. And notice when you pay attention to it, wherever it is, like what does it do? Does it stay stuck? Is it a really like stuck, sticky, heavy feeling? Or does it move? Is it like moving around? Is it hot or cold in any way? Is there any like texture to it? Sometimes when I feel a lot of anxiety, it feels like literally a cold, hard rock in my belly until I kind of breathe into it. And then for me, it loosens up. Just notice it for a second. And then just try and name the feeling for yourself. So it could be that you're tired, it could be you're hungry, it could be that you're worried, or maybe you're happy, or maybe you're just neutral. Just try and name it for a second. Breathe in again, breathe out. Okay, and then open your eyes. And just notice like the difference in your body. And the point is not to try and make any feeling go away. We just want to know what's happening so we can act accordingly. Right. I know I raced a bit through this, but obviously in a session, then this would be a bit longer. And I do have a podcast episode where I do it. So if you want that, just reach out. And I do want to say again, like how important this is. And this is one of the other coaches I trained with, who's like a doctor, has a hospital somewhere in the States. Um, she did a session on this and told us like the studies there are that around this, around like being emotionally it's intelligent and when you name your emotions. And she showed us a study of putting people into an MRI scanner, and then they would show them pictures of like horrible things happening, or maybe they were scared of spiders, or maybe something, I don't know, hungry children, whatever, like something horrible that would really make them feel a strong emotions. And they could then see in their MRI scanner how the amygdala would like literally flash up like the Christmas tree on the left, like just like really exploding because they were feeling all these really strong negative emotions. And then they asked them to name what they were feeling. So was it frustration? Was it fear? Was it sadness? Whatever it was. And when they named it, the amygdala would literally calm down in front of the people that were looking at the scanner, like about 50%. I can't remember exactly how much, but that is how much power you have just from naming your emotion. And again, it's not like trying to be super happy all the time, but it's just like having that awareness and being able to name it. Oh no, I'm getting angry now. I'm going to leave the situation because I know for myself when I'm in this situation, I'm just going to end up like, some people cry when I get really angry. It's really annoying. People are like, why are you sad? I'm furious, but, um, and, and, um, and it's really important that you also recognize that when you have a negative emotion, for example, if you have noticed you messed up in something, know that you told someone off you shouldn't, or you should have, if I don't know, if you're in charge of stock or something and you didn't order something really important, now the client is mad, that you feel uncomfortable around it, and that you're able to hold that emotion and process it, no? Because as leaders, we have to take responsibility for a lot of things, no? We have to take responsibility even when it doesn't seem fair, when it seems like it's our employee that has made the mistakes. I have to take responsibility for my nurses. No, if my nurses mess up at any point, I'm the responsible. I'm sole charge when I'm working nights, and everything is on me. And even if it's unfair, like I have to take full responsibility. And putting the blame on someone else is just not helpful, because that puts kind of the power on their side of the wall, and it's just not helpful. Whatever I keep inside me, I can control. And that's why if you're not able to feel your emotions and you're not in control of them, I mean, I say control, it's not like, oh, I'm feeling anxious, I should not be anxious, I shouldn't be angry, but at least that you know where you're at, no? Then you're more able to take that responsibility because you're not afraid of feeling your emotions. And and I remember again, Bruce, my husband, he has so many examples. He's also my best teacher in the case. I coach myself around our conversations. But he worked as an electronic engineer, and they would like go all over Britain installing security systems, so in prisons and museums and so on. And their boss, Mark, who now works in Canada, he one day he had messed an order up like big time. Like the things they were supposed to have so they can finish in time had just not arrived. And Mark walked up to Bruce and his mate, who also called Mark, and he said, like, I fucked up. How can we get this right? And in one sentence, he assumed full responsibility, and he was like, we are a team. Can you guys help me? What can we do? And it stuck with Bruce, and he told me, because he was like, he just liked this guy so much, because he didn't try and put blame on, they should have sent it and it's their fault. No, he really just, I fucked up. How can we get this done? No, and they were so like, let's do it, and they worked overtime because he did that, because he took that responsibility. So we're 1 minute out. My next slides are about boundaries, but I don't know if you want to hold now, and or if people want me to keep going. I don't want to go over time. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take.
Yeah, if you want to keep going, if anybody has to leave, they can. I will be sending the recording to everybody anyway, so if you have to step out, go ahead. But
Yeah, so okay, it should be like max 5 minutes or so. I just wanted to touch on boundaries relating to back to this. Um, all this, when we talk about boundaries, and obviously as a leader, you have to set boundaries. Like there's no like, people have to come on time, they have to, they they have to do the job that they're supposed to do. And boundaries when you are a leader are very different from boundaries, just general boundaries when you're a person, right? Because when you are a leader, you can actually tell people that if this happens, if you do this, the consequences are these. In a normal person, you can't give them consequences because everybody can just do whatever they want, right? Like, but kids and employees, there has to be boundaries, and that's why we have what do you call them? Job descriptions where it says exactly what you have to do, because then you know your boundaries. You're supposed to turn up at 8, you turn up at 8, and then if you do these things, no. And my groomer history hopefully will have shown you that when you don't set boundaries, you're getting so much bad energy from that. Like you're getting like you're gonna feel resentful, you're gonna feel disappointment towards others, you're gonna feel frustrated, you're gonna feel, and a lot of time we just assume people know. We just assume people know what you want them to do, and often people actually don't. Like I have different nurses on nights, and it's taken me a little while to get my head around, like I have to tell them things, no, because when I had my own clinic, I only had like my 2 nurses and they knew me inside out, and now I work with different people and I have to set boundaries, no. Um and and it's funny, like when we don't want to set boundaries is because we don't want that uncomfortable situation, right? We don't want people to go, well, I don't want to do that, or why are you telling me to do that? You have no right to tell me that. Or we don't want them setting a boundaries mean they can overstep the boundary. And now what do I do with that? Right? How do I step in and say something to them? No. And when I when I was in my beginning of my career as well, I didn't set boundaries with anybody, and that was with clients. I would let clients talk forever on consult. I wouldn't. I'm not saying like you need to be like a bad person or say like, "But this is enough." But you can be nice about boundaries, right? You can. So now I will interrupt clients gently. If they start talking and talking, because I do emergencies, and sometimes I don't have time to hear the whole life story, right? I can set boundaries for the clients. No, but in the past I didn't. And it made me feel really resentful towards the clients, like, oh my God, I'm running behind. Why can't they just shut up? No. And there was a vet I was coaching as well. She was a horse vet and she was brilliant at her job. But most of the vets I coach are better than me at everything as vets, and they're just amazing. And she was one of these horse vets that can just work a horse like so quickly, where maybe the other vets would take a day. It was like in a special hospital, no? And the receptionist would then book extra cases in with her because they knew how fast she was. And when I got her, like she had so much burnout. She had panic attacks. So she would like wake up in the morning, try and get out of bed, and just lie there for half an hour with a panic attack and couldn't move. And one of the first things we worked on was her to set boundaries. I'm like, but why are you letting the receptionist book these horses for you when you end up like running so late? And she had a little daughter and there was all these things. And she was like, but they just do. And I'm like, but you're the vet. Like, what? So she ended up then like just graying out the areas, just like extending the appointments in the diary, and then they couldn't book them. And it was literally that simple. But she just had not, because she was not didn't have the self-awareness, and she was so stressed at this point. She just didn't see that she could actually set boundaries. And sometimes it's literally as simple as that, no? And sometimes it's more complicated, but we have to be aware of not having the boundaries in the first place. Um, and if you have guilt around setting boundary, um, then it is really interesting to look at where that guilt is coming from. If you have to give some constructive but harsh feedback to someone and set a boundary, say, look, I've had a complaint about you, or you've been late so many times. So if it happens again, so this is what I call if this, then that. No, so you need to tell people, so if you're late again, if it's 2 more strikes, then I'll have to fire you, or, you're not getting paid, or whatever it is. Like, if you do this, then this is a consequence. And if you feel a lot of guilt doing that, or if you feel guilt firing an employee that has absolutely not fulfilled any of this, like, where's that guilt coming from? And first of all, notice that you're feeling guilt, instead of just feeling a knot in your stomach and not being able to breathe and wake up at 2 a.m. thinking of all the things you always do wrong. Like, notice the guilt. No, I'm feeling guilt because I'm thinking that now this person, whatever. But really look at that, the thoughts you're having. And a mantra I told this specific client in another circumstance was like, is it true what I'm thinking? And is it important? And sometimes it's like, it can be such as simple as, so out of the veterinary world, for example, this can translate into like, you text a friend and they, what was this example I had? Oh, so this was a client I coached that had, she had arranged with the 2 families were going away on holiday. And then at the last minute, the other family said like, you know what, we don't have the money in the end. We don't want to go. And in her head, she thought that it was because the two little daughters had fought the day before she got that message. And she was beating herself up that she was not a good mom. And why couldn't the other one just communicate? And why didn't they say? And I'm like, but how you know it's true? And she's like, I don't, but there was just like things you were assuming. So first of all, is it true? And I was like, is it important? Like you're not going on holiday, you can go by yourself. And right now, like if you want, talk with your friend about it later on, but is it important right now? And especially when our ego is high and we are in fight and flight, everything becomes important. It becomes life threatening, and you're not able to prioritize, and you're not able to notice what is actually really, really important and what is just fluff. You don't really need to worry about it. So when you want to set a boundary and you notice the guilt and you notice frustration, like really be curious inside yourself, like what exactly am I feeling? Where is it coming from? And I love journaling. No, I really recommend all my clients to journal as well, because it's a really good way to see what patterns do I have and why do like it's that typical girlfriend that always ends up with these fuckwit boyfriends, and you're like, this is the 10 guy now that has cheated on you. What is wrong? And they have patterns they don't see, and it's not that she's been so unlucky to run into 10 guys that all do the same. It's because she's running patterns that she cannot see, and the only way you can see them is by confronting them, challenging them, and to me writing them down is essential, because otherwise I just don't know. So, and then after you have set a boundary and after you have upheld it, evaluate. How did it go? What did you do well? What didn't go so well? And what will you do differently next time? And for example, here's an alternative model. If you can then like, how do I want to think about this? For example, I want to focus on the outcome. My team is not performing. What do I want to think about this? Maybe I can't think that they're all so perfect. I can say they have so much potential, right? Because we can agree that most humans have a lot of potential, and I can find a way to make this work, right? And then you're feeling determined, you're feeling motivated, and then you're evaluating, you're being curious, you're asking questions, you're not like blaming anybody. You're not getting so overwhelmed because you realize it's a process. You're willing to take the steps because you told yourself, I can find the way to make it work, right? And you're not afraid of the discomfort, because now you're at a point where you're like, whatever discomfort comes up, I can deal with, no? And you improve day by day and you create the dream team, basically. But it's all coming from within you. And that's what I really want you to see. Like you can take courses on like how to have eye contact when you give feedback and all that. But at the end of the day, the foundation comes from within you, So that's what I hope you can take away from today. So that was it. We went 7 minutes over, sorry. Any questions? And thank you.
Let's see. I don't see any questions in the chat. I do see a couple statements of relating to what you're talking about and having good advice. So thank you for that.
Cool.
If anybody has another question they'd like to ask. Missy says, thank you so much. Great information, great insight. Dee took a screenshot of your slide to refer back to.
Cool. Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming today. And for those people who may have had to step out early, it will be recorded and sent to them, as I always promise. For those of you, I did write down everybody's name, so you'll get a CE certificate. I will email that to you. So thank you, Gunila, for coming today and helping us. And
Thank you.
And have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stop recording.